Prayer of St. Gregory Hovannes, and is conducted by Gerard Schwarz. And Gerard is in town because he is with the Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra. He's an internationally recognized conductor, over 350 recordings on so many different labels. He has toured the world and conducted, I can't even begin to name all the orchestras he's conducted with. And he's here in the studio with me this morning. Good morning, Gerard.
Good morning. Wonderful to be here.
It's wonderful to have you here.
Thank
you. You know,
you.
it's a real treat to have you, not just here, but in town with the Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra. I mean, you've been all over the world, conducted so many orchestras, and it's your first time here in Winnipeg. So welcome to Winnipeg.
Thank you. You know, I found out yesterday that I've actually been here before.
In the airport or just in the city?
I conducted the Manitoba Chamber Orchestra in the late 70s, 1970s.
Wow.
And a lot of years ago. And I remember the program. I remember the soloist. Gary Carr was a soloist. I remember I did the Arthur Foote Suite for Strings. But one of the bass players in the Winnipeg Symphony reminded me, not that he played, that he was in the audience because Gary Carr was the soloist.
So
and I didn't even realize that. You know, and it was a great. I remember we did a concert in a church, and it was wonderful. The orchestra was terrific, and it was one of my earliest guest conducting appearances.
Well, welcome back to Winnipeg, I should say. So let's begin just a bit by talking about orchestras. And you have been in front of and been with so many different orchestras in North America and throughout the world. What's the mark of a really good orchestra? I'm kind of curious about that. I mean, there's so many throughout the world, and you've been involved in so many. What distinguishes one from another?
From my, I mean, you have different perspectives. You know, if you have the audience perspective, okay, do you like a powerful orchestra? Do you like a lush-sounding orchestra? Do you like one that's meticulously clean and everything's perfect? I mean, there are lots of criteria, and every audience member has a different opinion. Basically, orchestras service their community. So the Winnipeg Symphony services this greater Winnipeg area, which means it is the cultural center of Winnipeg. It has to be. It's the same thing in every city in the world that's of major that has cultural institutions at all. So for me, though, what I care about is I care that the orchestra has a good attitude. In other words, when you start to conduct, everybody wants to do well. Now, you'd think that is always the case. But you go to some orchestras and they're kind of testing you. Not me so much now at my age, but certainly when I was younger. And they have a little, why is she conducting us? I mean, I've played here and I've played these pieces. And, you get a little attitude. And, you have to win these people over, obviously. When I conducted yesterday, my first two rehearsals, the orchestra is wonderful. They're welcoming. They have a personality which is friendly. And every orchestra has, some orchestras aren't friendly as a personality. And
I won't ask which ones those are. That's okay.
So one is that it's a wonderful environment. That means a lot to me as a conductor. The next thing is, do they actually look at you? Now, that's another bizarre. Don't all orchestras look at the conductor? Well, sometimes you start doing a piece, and it's almost like they're on automatic pilot. They'll just play. And if you want to mold phrases, you want to change tempos, you want to make things expressive, you can't do it without stopping and saying, okay, in these bars I'm going to go slower, in these bars, and here I want the shape of the phrase to be this way. You make it louder here, soft, whatever. But here, it was a shock to me because the first thing we did was a Copland Third Symphony. It's a masterpiece. It's a great piece by a great composer, not often played. You'd think that's often played because it's one of his masterpieces, one of his greatest works, but it's very difficult. Not for the audience, but difficult for the orchestra, somewhat difficult for the conductor. And so if you have a choice of doing the Brahms Symphony, which everybody knows and is easygoing in terms of the technical issues, compared to a Copland Third, now, the music director here, who's fantastic, just programs, yes, the traditional works, but also very interesting works. So he wanted me to do the Copland Third, and it's a piece I don't do much because it's so difficult. So I start conducting, and the orchestra's flexible. They change tempos as I indicate. That's something. It's real. It's huge, which means that we're starting to make music together. I listen to them, they follow me, and then the other issue is that the piece is very difficult. It's very hard for the violins in the high register. It's usually out of tune. I mean, what can I say? But if an orchestra really practices and they're fine players, like most orchestras are, most orchestras have fine players, they don't necessarily always practice. Boy, this orchestra was prepared, and they played fabulously. So for me, then there's a question of the interpretive ideas, whether what their ideas are, what my ideas are, the basic sound the orchestra makes. It makes a beautiful sound.
So there has to be an openness on their part, I guess. They have to be prepared to, as you say, not just open their eyes, but open their ears and almost open their, I would say, their hearts, because, you know, it's one thing to play the music and, you know, you talk about being a fabric of the culture, but it's another thing to sort of open their hearts to what you're trying to teach them. And it's almost like it's something you have to establish right away. That you don't get a lot of time to establish the relationship.
Right. But it is a give and take because they offer. So this beautiful, many beautiful musicians, and they have ideas and they play. And as a conductor, I listen. What are they saying to me? And most of the time, certainly all the time here, they give me some interpretive ideas of theirs, and I embrace them, and we do it together. It's interesting. It's also we have enough time. So many times with orchestras, you're rushing to get through, and you feel like they're more concerned about whether you can manage the time well than whether you can interpret music well. And here we have enough time so that the interpretation can evolve and everybody can start to feel comfortable. The worst thing I think for an orchestra, I used to be in an orchestra, is you turn the page. And you don't say, did I ever play this page? I played with Bernstein a lot, and Bernstein would stop all the time. He'd stop and stop. And after a while, you just, nothing's kind of hooked together anymore. And there were famous stories of his dress rehearsals going hours overtime because he would stop so much. And by the time the opening night came, if you were lucky, you knew how the piece went.
So how did I'm looking at the program, it's a very unique program of music. How did it come together? You mentioned that Alexander Micklethwaite, who's the music director of the WSO, wanted the Copland's Third Symphony. What about the other two works? There's the John Williams and the other piece by Gerard Tate as well.
Alexander picked the program.
He picked the program.
I mean, it's a little unusual. Because usually, you come and they say, what would you like to do? And this is what we've done recently, and would you be interested in this? In this case, this is the program they wanted. And so as a guest, you have a choice. You either say, no, I'm not coming, or you say, okay, let's see what happens. So what I did is, of course, the Copland is a great piece, and I thought, wow, I'm happy to try it again. It's probably been 20 years since I've done it. Last time I did it, I remember, was in Pittsburgh. And Schindler's List, of course, I'm a great John Williams fan. I just think John is an incredible genius, one of the great film composers, together with the old timers like Bernard Herrmann and Eric Korngold.
Korngold, yeah.
Just great. He's great. And this is great music, so that's fine. And the Tate piece, of course, I didn't know, so I had to look at. I had to. If it's really terrible, I won't do it. So they sent me the score. I think it's terrific, and I was right. It is terrific, and we rehearsed it also yesterday. So it's a fabulous piece, and so together with that and the Human Rights Museum open, it makes so much sense, and I think it makes for an excellent program. I have to compliment Alexander for doing such a great job, and I'm thrilled to do it.
Just mentioned I'm in the studio now with Gerard Schwarz, the conductor who is in town to perform with Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra. Let's have a quick listen to something that they'll be performing tonight. Just a short little clip, and this is something you'll probably recognize right away. Copland, Fanfare for the Common Man. Aaron Copland's Fanfare for the Common Man. That's Antaldaradi and the Detroit Symphony Orchestra. And that is a movement of a piece you'll hear this weekend with the Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra. That's part of Copland's Symphony No. 3. And I'm in the studio with Gerard Schwarz, who's going to be conducting the WSO this weekend with November 14th and November 15th at the concert hall. And Gerard, one of your, you keep busy with so many things, but probably the most, I shouldn't speak for you, but one of the things you're involved with right now is something called the All-Star Orchestra that seems to occupy a lot of your time right now. Tell us a bit about the All-Star Orchestra.
Well, as you know, I was music director in Seattle for 26 years, and I was there 28 years, including the years I was there as advisor. And when I decided to leave, I wanted to look for the next mountain to climb. So I started composing a lot more again. I was always been composing. I spent a lot more doing it, a lot more guest conducting, obviously. But and I ran a festival, then ran a festival called the Eastern Music Festival. But in a way, what I cared about the most was the audience. I've always cared about the audience. And I care about trying to make a difference. How can we make a difference? We all read all the statistics now that say if you study music, you'll do better in everything. Okay. Basically, you'll do better in school. The numbers are incredible. Mm-hmm. If you really play an instrument, the likelihood of graduating high school and properly and in the proper amount of time and going on to university is so much higher than if you don't. There's been a new study about Alzheimer's. If you play an instrument, you'd be less likely to get Alzheimer's. So the doctor that did that study, I think from Harvard, at the age of 55, started learning to play the saxophone because he read his studies and said, I don't want to have Alzheimer's. I'm going to start practicing. And so my idea has always been that the reason why we don't have, let's say, 50% of North America listening to classical music is because they haven't been exposed to it. So they've never heard it. How can you not like it or like it if you've never heard it? They're not educated. A lot of people just even if you've heard, what's going on there? You want to know something. And then sometimes it's the cost. Now, the great thing here, we can turn the radio on and we can hear great classical music. And it's free. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's fantastic. The other area, certainly in the United States and certainly in Canada as well, is through public television. So you can turn on a concert on public television and you can hear music live for free. And maybe it'll grab you, maybe it won't. What's the problem, though? The problem with classical music on public television is that you can take all of the classical music that's on public television, forgetting opera now, and it wouldn't occupy a whole day. That's how little there is. So I had this idea. I want to get more music on public television. I want to do something that is made for television. I don't want to have cameras in the way of the audience and the audience saying, oh, this isn't I paid money to go to a concert. This isn't a recording studio, and those cameras are in the way. So I thought, why not just make concerts for television? They are not live concerts. They're edited. There's no audience. You don't sell tickets. None of that. You just make television shows. And the last time that was done in North America was in the 1950s.
Bernstein?
With Bernstein and Omnibus. There were lots of concerts on television, but they are concerts, live concerts. This is made for television. And then I thought to myself, well, what orchestra should I do it with? Should I do it with the Winnipeg Symphony or the Seattle Symphony or the New York Philharmonic? And I thought to myself, wouldn't it be wonderful if we try to include everyone? So we put together an orchestra from 30 major orchestras throughout North America, including Winnipeg, and brought these musicians together to New York, and in 4 days recorded 8-hour-long television shows. We did it again a couple of months ago. And what we do with these is that they're available to listen to. So if anybody listening wants to watch one, you go on All-Star Orchestra, one word, allstarorchestra.org, and you can listen to any of the 8 shows, and the new ones are being edited now. But more importantly, what do you do about education? So we have a little education. It's a little storytelling. But now we're working with an organization called the Khan Academy. And the Khan Academy is the largest online learning academy in the world.
KAHN?
It's 15 million people a month. It's unbelievable. 500,000 teachers in 200 countries use the materials in their classrooms. And we're doing the music for them. So, you go on Khan Academy and click in music, and you'll see 40 lessons. It's just the beginning. We're going to have thousands of lessons. So again, Khan Academy's mission is free. Their thing is be educated and for free. So what we're trying to do is make it part of people's lives so that they will go to concerts. But even if they don't go to concerts, at least it won't be something foreign to them. Mm-hmm. And I'm very enthusiastic. The Khan Academy stuff just came out a couple of months ago, and we've already had over 235,000 people looking at our material. I mean, it's the potential of it having a tremendous impact is so. And of course, the orchestra is sensational. Mm-hmm. And people say, how can you have an orchestra playing it passionately without an audience? Well, if you have the principal second violin from the New York Philharmonic sitting next to the principal second violin of the Philadelphia Orchestra, you don't need more of an audience than that. Mm-hmm. You know, or the principal oboe from Boston next to the principal flute from Philadelphia. I mean, they are, and for them, it's a thrill. It's fun. You get away from your own environment, and from the moment you sit down, talk about being prepared, we start recording. We just start right away. And people say, you don't rehearse? No, we record everything. And the performances are sensational. I mean, the orchestra is unbelievable. And so, for me, it's a great thrill, but also you feel like you can have a real impact, not to take the place of music educators, but to give them more tools. So, to encourage schools to have music specialists, to encourage music education as part of the core curriculum of junior high school and high schools. Mm-hmm. And it's having an impact. And that's, for me, it's really a passion, and you feel like you can give back and you can make a difference.
When did you begin this project?
Well, the first 8 shows were shown last spring, and the next series will be shown this spring. But again, they have a life of their own. Everything's free, except if you want to actually buy the DVDs. Noxos put all the DVDs out. You can buy them from Noxos or from Amazon or wherever. So it's ongoing. The great thing is what we'll do now is we're going to create a library. So over the next, we have a 4-year plan. Over the next 4 years, we will have a piece by every major composer. So I ask you, how many composers would you include? You know, besides, you know, obviously Beethoven, Bach, Brahms, Handel, and so we identified 80. And
you said 80? 80, okay.
And 80 is still it's a low number. You know, I forgot Kurt Weill. Now, should Kurt Weill be included? Well, I think probably. Now, what about Carl Orff? He wrote the Carmina Burana. Now, you know, he's basically a one-hit wonder. But I mean, so you know, as time goes on, you keep thinking about all these great composers. There's so many, and I'm not saying that we're going to do 9 Beethoven symphonies. We do 1 Beethoven symphony, 1 Brahms symphony, 1 Schumann symphony. But then you know, you start to think about it. And it's fun on occasion to have a debate over dinner, you know. Should we include, you know, Messiaen? You know.
The other interesting thing I find is too, it gives students or whoever decides to look at them online the opportunity to, as you say, not a lot of people go out to concerts, go out to the concert hall. It gives them an opportunity to see and a lot of kids, a complete work, as opposed to, you know, people will know bum 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 bum. They know that movement, and they probably might even know it's Beethoven, but to hear that in the context of a whole symphony must open their eyes to a whole new world.
And we do complete symphonies. In other words, we debated the idea of interrupting each movement and talking about each movement. We decided not to do that. So we do the whole. So we have a little discussion. We do the whole piece. But if you want to go deep further, I do an analysis of the piece. So you want to know what is what is that, and what happens to it during the movement? Does it? How does it come back in other movements? You know, I describe it, and then you show it. You show it visually, as well as audio-wise. I do a conducting lesson. So what does a conductor do? He's up there. He doesn't make any sound. What does he do? Well, you can click on the conducting lesson, and I do the first one, a Beethoven Fifth conducting lesson. I'll do a conducting lesson for, I mean, they're not all done yet, but for every major piece, there'll be, you know, again, is it that I'm the greatest teacher of conducting? Certainly not. But at least it gives the viewer an idea of what we as conductors do, and then a little bit of my specific feeling about how things should go.
Yeah, it gives them a taste, and hopefully they'll want more.
And then you know, you're a violinist, and David Kim, the concertmaster of Philadelphia, gives you violin lessons. I mean, or Jerry Grossman, the principal cello of the Met, gives you a cello lesson. I mean, it's really interesting. And I remember not long ago talking to a great music lover who wanted to know what that instrument was in the oboe section that's a little bigger and has that kind of angled vocal at the top. And this woman was, a serious music lover. She just never knew. And I said, well, that's an English horn. Go on, the All-Star Orchestra, look under education, click on the musicians, click on English horn, and Diaz, the principal English horn of the Met, will tell you all about the English horn. I mean, it's really fun. And then the other thing we're doing, we have cameras. We have lots of cameras. So if let's say you're a high school clarinet player, and you're doing the Shostakovich Fifth in your youth orchestra, you can actually look at only the clarinet. You can just watch the clarinet the whole time, and you see what, in this case, he is doing and how he's doing it, what fingerings he's using. I mean, it's really interesting because we have cameras on every section of the orchestra that are stationary. So you want to watch the trumpets or the horns or the timpani. I mean, there's so many possibilities, and it's just nonstop editing. I mean, every day I get something on my email to look over. We have a great editor in San Diego. I mean, the world today is unbelievable. So people are all over the country doing stuff for the Conductor. It's very exciting.
So I wanted to briefly, just before we wrap up, ask you maybe just quickly touch upon a couple of the highlights over your, was it 5-decade career? 5-decade career. There's so many things you could probably mention, and we could probably do a whole show about that as well. But just a couple of the highlights that you can think of.
When you say something like that, of course, I have no idea where to begin. But these visions come through your brain. So for me, I remember when I was 12 years old at Interlochen, Michigan, which was called National Music Camp in those days, playing the last movement of the Sibelius Second Symphony, and deciding that I would become a musician because of hearing that great piece. I remember my audition for the New York Philharmonic for Pierre Boulez. Really interesting. I remember, as a highlight, playing the Mahler Fifth Symphony when I worked with Bernstein for the first time at the New York Philharmonic. That was it was a great moment. And then, of course, my besides the obvious family things, I have 4 kids and an incredible wife, but also building Benaroya Hall in Seattle was a huge thing that my wife and I worked on for 5 years and many years before that. I think it's a great concert hall. It's right in the middle of town. It, in a way, helped define culturally that city, that and the art museum across the street. And I'm very proud. And I mean, every aspect of that building was something that was just a joy to be a part of. And I think as time goes on now, those incredible recording sessions with the All-Star Orchestras just, I remember this year first thing we did this year was Scheherazade, Rimsky-Korsakov. And the engineer said, well, Jerry, give me a loud moment. So I picked a loud moment, for the bikes, and I gave a downbeat, and I heard the sound that these musicians made, and you got chills. It was so gorgeous, just a thrill to hear. So it's, as you say, there are a lot of highlights, but those are the ones that just jumped out at me.
And many more to come.
I hope.
Many more to come.
Thank you.
Well, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for coming into the studio this
great to
morning.
Be here. Congratulations on this fabulous station.
Thank you.
Really exciting.
And welcome back to Winnipeg. Back to Winnipeg, I'll say this time.
Thank you.
I've been chatting with Gerard Schwarz, who's the guest conductor of the Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra, coming up this weekend. And I've got one more piece I'm going to play you, and this is actually Gerard Schwarz conducting the President's Own United States Marine Band. We're going to play a work by Barber, and it's called the Commando March.